What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we got some new Keyforge cards to talk about. It's been a little bit quiet on Age of Ascension cards. We've not had any revealed for a little while. Well, the good news is, ladies and gentlemen, we've had a few revealed, and I'm going to have to split them over a few videos. And there's a bunch of Mars cards been revealed, and as you know if you've watched a few of my videos, I'm quite the fan of Mars. So I thought, you know what? Let's have a bit of a chat about Mars, shall we? Now, we're going to start off today having a look at action cards. Oh, no, there's an upgrade in there as well. And frankly, one of these is good. And another one of these is good but risky. And one of these is over-the-top phenomenally awesome if used at the right time. So let's start off having a little bit of a look at Destructive Analysis. It is a Mars action card. It gives you an Ember bonus, which is nice. And you get to deal 2 damage to a creature. But you may then purge any number of cards from your archives to deal an extra 2 damage to the same creature for each card purged in this way. So frankly, if you've got enough cards in your archives, you can literally just get rid of any creature on your opponent's side of the field. And this fits quite nicely with what Mars did back in Wave 1. I like to look at themes in houses, and one of the themes in Mars back in Wave 1 was that they did cheeky damage. So we saw cards like Orbital Bombardment, for instance, which let you reveal any number of Mars cards from your hand, and for each card revealed this way, you dealt 2 damage to a creature. Or we had things like Mothership Support, which let you, for each friendly ready Mars creature, deal 2 damage to a creature. Or indeed Mother Gun, that let you reveal any number of Mars cards from your hand and deal damage to a creature equal to the number of cards you revealed. So look, Mars is good at cheeky damage. I did actually make a video about that. I'll try to remember to pop a link in the description. So this is another one of those cards that does that. The thing is, you got to purge cards from your archive. Purge means they go away. Purge means they ain't coming back, ladies and gentlemen. Not only that, but Mars has never been a great house for archiving. Now, if we look at something like Logos, for instance, Logos loves archiving. We got Lab Work that lets you archive a card, or Sloppy Lab Work that lets you archive a card, but then discard a card, or Random Access Archives, which lets you archive the top card of your deck, and there's plenty more. Again, I did a video about Logos archiving. I'll pop a link to that one in the description. Come on, remembering. The point is, Mars is good at cheeky damage. Mars isn't great at archiving. What's really weird, though, is that there's plenty of cards in Call of the Archon, well, a few at least, that let you archive your opponent's cards when you're playing Mars. So we saw Mass Abduction, put 3 damaged enemy creatures into your archives. And we saw Sample Collection, which put an enemy creature into your archives for each key your opponent has forged. And then we saw Uxlix the Zookeeper, which puts an enemy creature into your archives when you reap. Now, all of those did say that if it leaves the archives, then it goes to your opponent's hand instead. I believe that would happen before it got purged, but we need a ruling just to confirm there. Now, there were some cards that archived with Mars. We saw Incubation Chamber, a location, an artifact that had an Omni ability to let you reveal a Mars creature from your hand and archive it. Or Vesima Think Drone, that when you reaped, you could archive a friendly creature or artifact from play. Or Biomatrix Backup, that when destroyed, you may put this creature into its owner's archives. Although it was initially ruled that your opponent got the choice, that was reversed. So maybe Mars is going to have more archiving next time, you know, in Age of Ascension. Or maybe this is just going to be one of those cards that if you get it in Logos, i.e. in a deck that also has Logos, it's going to be amazing. Also, right, if you got this as a Maverick in Logos, that would also be amazing. And maybe if it's not one of those scenarios, it's just not good enough. Either way, this does a bunch of cheeky damage, and that's pretty cool. But you got to purge cards from your archive, and before you do that, you got to have cards in your archive. Now, we're also getting a new upgrade, and this new upgrade is really interesting to me. It's KILLZONE Mark 9001, and every time you fight with the creature to whom it is attached, you gain a chain. Now, I'm sure Unless I'm missing something really obvious, in which case correct me in the comment section. But I'm fairly sure this is the first time we've seen this on an upgrade. Now, the great news here is it is an upgrade, which means that you've always got the option of going, you know what, that's a bit rich for my blood, I ain't touching that with a barge pole, and just not attaching it. But this is weird. You gain 1 chain every time you fight. Now, assuming you've not got any more chains, when you got 1 chain, you draw 1 fewer card, but you shed a chain at the end of the turn when you draw 1 fewer card. So essentially, if you've got 1 chain like we see here, it equates to every time you fight, you're going to draw 1 fewer card at the end of your turn. So this better be pretty gosh darned good. And the answer is, yeah, it is. It gives you +2 armor, and +2 power, and skirmish. Now, skirmish means if you start the fight, you don't take any damage in return. Elusive, they have to attack you twice to take you down. Skirmish, if you start the fight, you don't take any damage back. But you get +2 power and +2 armor, which means that even if your opponent starts the fight, it's going to take a little bit for them to take you down. Now, again, we don't know everything that's going to be in Wave 2, but let's take something like Grabber Jammer. Now, I love Grabber Jammer because it makes your opponent's keys cost 1 more to forge, and when you fight or reap, you capture an ember, so it's the kind of thing that your opponent is really going to want to go after, because you're both capturing an ember every turn and increasing the cost of their keys being forged. But now, all of a sudden, you're a 6 power, with 3 armor, and when you fight, you capture an ember, but you've got skirmish, so you are guaranteed to survive the fight. That's pretty gosh darned awesome. It really does seem like it's worth giving up the chain. Now, not all the time, but let's say you put this on something like a Grabber Jammer, just don't fight. Just reap. Because you still capture the 1 ember if you reap, and you still get the +2 armor, and you still get the +2 power, but you just don't fight, so you don't gain a chain. So you could put this on a creature and just leave it there reaping, going, look, I don't think you're going to be able to take me down, so I'm fine, to be honest. Maybe you put this on something like Tunk. One of the great things about Tunk is that every time you play another creature, another Mars creature, you fully heal. So now you've got an 8 power, 3 armor creature that heals every time you play another Mars creature. That's pretty cool. And get used to this, it's giving something skirmish, so I have got to mention Into the Fray here. Into the Fray is one of the cards from Age of Ascension which I'm obsessed with. For the remainder of the turn, a friendly Brobnar creature gains fight, ready this creature. You just really need skirmish so you can survive all the fights, and either you take out 6 creatures, because the rule of 6 will stop you doing it more than 6 times, or you take out all their creatures, and then you're ready and you get to reap. And even though it's a Mars upgrade, remember you can put it on any creature of any house, so if you can draw Into the Fray in the same deck as, KILLZONE Mark 9001, that's going to be kind of fun. But as fun as those other 2 cards look, and they do, there is a clear winner for most ridiculous Mars card revealed this week. And it's Martian Generosity. The kind of draw card that people really are going to want to see when they open up their deck. You get an Ember bonus, and when you play it, you lose all of your Ember. And then you draw 2 cards for each Ember you lost. That's utterly ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely crazy. Now, first of all, you get an Ember bonus. That's nice. And that means at absolute minimum, you can draw 2 cards. If you forge a key at the beginning of your turn and you've got no other way to get Ember, you can still use that Ember bonus to get rid of that 1 Ember and draw 2 cards. But let's face it, you're going to have a 36 card deck. But then, of course, you take out this, that's 35 cards, and realistically, most of the time, you're going to have something like 15, 20 cards in your deck. At the most. And then when you start shuffling up your discard pile and making it back into your deck, which you will, you're probably going to have maybe 25 cards. So it's not going to be that difficult to draw your entire deck. Now, the way it works is when you're drawing, if you run out of deck, you go, oh, now my scrap pile, I shuffle it up and it becomes my deck. But obviously, if you've drawn your deck and then your scrap pile becomes your deck and you draw that, that's it, it's done, it's over. That's still crazy draw power. Now, the problem here is what you really want to do is play this and then play something like a bait and switch. This plus a bait and switch would be absolutely amazing. Now, they are two different houses, unfortunately. And we got plenty of cards like Phase Shift that allow you to cheat houses, i.e. play a card from a house that's not the active house, and I'm sure there'll be decks with combos around. But if nothing else, you lose some Ember, and then it sets you up for the rest of the game. Now look, sometimes you won't be able to. So, if your opponent has forged one key and you've forged one key, and you are in a race for who can forge next, and your opponent's about to forge, you can't let your opponent forge their second key as you run completely out of Ember. That's not going to work. But if you lose all of your Ember to draw all of your cards, and then you drop a bunch of stealing cards down to stop your opponent having Ember, and then you get rid of your opponent's Ember while then building up your stack of Ember. Because remember, right, if you're playing a whole bunch of cards, you're going to be able to get the Ember bonuses off all of those cards. Maybe you get stuff like Soft Landing, which lets you play Martian cards down, ready, and then you can reap straight away and get more Ember. If you just play this down and get rid of all your Ember and you start falling behind in the race to forge free keys, that's a very bad thing. But we've seen this with library access decks, where they draw enough cards they can essentially do anything. Now here, okay, you have to get rid of all of your Ember, and to be clear, you don't have a choice, you have to lose all of your Ember. But then you can start building back up. Maybe you lose 7 Ember, but you draw 14 cards, and then by the end of the turn you've got 9 Ember, but you've also knocked out a couple of creatures using cheeky damage, etc., and all of a sudden you are in a much better position than you were. And this immediately makes me think of library access, but it's not library access. You see, the huge difference with library access is you draw 2 every time you play a card. So you play a card, draw 2, play a card, draw 2, and you can cycle through your deck. Whereas here, no matter how much Ember you get rid of, when you've drawn your entire deck, that's it, you stop drawing because there are literally no more cards to draw, and it's over. And you can't then discard cards and redraw them. Now, maybe if you've got 2 copies of this in your deck, and we have no confirmation, this is wild speculation, but it seems like the kind of card where you might only be able to have 1 in your deck. If you've got, say, 2 of these, then you can play 1, get rid of all your Ember, draw your entire deck, play a bunch of cards to generate more Ember, play the second one of these to get rid of it and draw your deck again, and you can essentially use 2 of these to cycle through your deck. Now, maybe there'll be something along the lines of Nepenthe Seed that lets you get a second one of these, and that could be a problem. But as it stands, unless you can have 2 of these or replicate 1 or reuse 1, you can draw your whole deck, but you can't cycle your deck. But make no mistake about it, we've seen this with decks that have ridiculous draw power in Call of the Archons. You can end up drawing your whole deck and then getting a whole bunch of Ember and clearing your opponent's board and literally pulling off every single combo in your deck all at the same time. And at that stage, you can give yourself a huge advantage. I like all 3 of these cards, but I do think that Martian Generosity has the potential to be absolutely broken, and if you end up with 2 or more copies of this in your deck, watch out, you're going to have a pretty ridiculous deck. So I like all 3 of these cards, but I would very much like to know what you think about all 3 of these cards. So please do let me know in the comment section, ladies and gentlemen. Go nuts, but please do remember the rule. Be nice, would you? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk about, well, a whole bunch of games like Keyforge, but also Transformers and stuff. It's fun. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.